Bring today's meeting, the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway meeting to order this Thursday, October 26, 2017. If you'll all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Candy, could you do a roll call for us?
Certainly. Jack McGuffey.
Here.
Nick Morano.
Here.
Denny Dodson.
Here.
Joel Dunn.
Here.
New member Stan Jones.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'll move on to agenda item number 2 for possible action, the approval of the agenda. Do we have any commissioner comments?
I would first like to welcome Stan Jones to the board, selected as the governor's pick. Welcome aboard.
Yep, absolutely. Congratulations. And then I do have one comment in regards to the agenda. As we keep moving forward in the attempt to be a little more transparent and get the information out, I've asked Candy's team to put together a newsletter that will go out in a timely fashion ahead of time, so that with a database, so that folks can be properly notified of when the meeting is, the agenda packet, and all that. So it'll come out, instead of coming out in separate emails from everybody and making sure we get covered, it'll come out as one newsletter from the V&T Commission, with potential to put some marketing items in there too, but it'll be on a regular basis. So, and then with that, I'll also be looking to our new admin position with the Virginia City Tourism Commission starting next week to kind of help with some of the admin duties that I'm doing right now and Candy's doing, everybody's doing. So we'll get some help with that and some consistency with reporting the information. So with that, can I call for a motion on the agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept today's agenda. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Agenda item number 3, public comment on non-agendized items. Again, these are items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to action item number 4 on the agenda. And this would be for possible action to accept the resignation of Chairman Dwight Millard as the governor's appointee to the commission. Again, it may be after the fact now that we have a new appointee, but for the we weren't sure he was going to be here today. That's why we had that on there. So,
I'll make a motion to accept Dwight Millard's resignation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on that? Hearing no public comment, I'll ask for all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5. Again, this would be for possible action to approve and/or accept the treasurer's report. Joel?
As we transition through with the new commission, we're going to simply accept the financials as submitted. And going through today's financials, you also have the accounts payable claims for $94,448.28, of which have been signed by the new signing authority and the chair. So with that, I'll make a motion to accept the financials and the accounts payable as submitted from the accountant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further comment? Anything from the public? Hearing none, I'll ask for all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're moving right along. Agenda item number 6, for possible action, an update on the Draco property. This will be discussion, possible action to sell the note for the first deed of trust and the mortgage for the Draco property to ensure that there will be funding for operations needed to finish the 2017 regular season. You want to hit that one too, Joel? Or?
I think on this one, I'll ask if legal counsel can go over the account. I know that it was brought back to the agenda just as the opportunity to make sure that the commission's aware of what the past commission was working on with the potential sale of the note.
Sure. The previous commission had authorized the research into how to go about doing it, and I think under the Uniform Commercial Code, you would be able to market somewhere, I'm not sure where, the promissory note secured by deed of trust. At this time, according to Vanessa's calculation, as of October 1st, $466,349.32 is owed by the purchaser of the Draco property. I'm sure that if you find somebody to purchase the note, they're going to want to do it at a discount. The previous commission got that far with it, and then we transitioned to this commission, and the question is going to be how to get it on the market and see if there's any interested buyers in it. I would guess you're looking at a minimum of a 20% discount on what's owed.
There was also the thought that maybe the guy that owes on the note, the owner, I guess, might be interested in that as well?
I remember the discussion. His name is Roy Street. The actual buyer is Roy Street Properties, LLC. And I don't know. If you'd like, I can approach him about that, or you can have Candy or Bob or whomever approach him about whether or not they'd want to pay it off early, and see what they'd offer to do that.
That might be worth looking into.
Well, so if I understand it correctly, we own the building outright. We've leased it out or actually financed it, sold it just to another party, and they're making regular payments back to us?
Right. You don't own it anymore. Title transferred at the time of the close of escrow, but
okay.
it's your interest is secured by first deed of trust on the property that has First American Title as the trustee under the deed of trust, and the commission is the beneficiary of the deed of trust. And except for one glitch, he's been pretty prompt about the payment. There was an issue about some interest, I recall, at one point, but he brought that current and has been staying current with the payments that are required by the prom note.
And the promissory note is, $2,835 a month. is the current payment?
Yes, there's a copy of the most recent payment, $28.35 a month, which was paid in October. For October, actually paid on the 27th of September.
Mike, do you know what the commission originally paid for that property?
I do.
And then what did the commission sell it to the current property owner for?
Let me answer the last one first, because that's right at the top here. The seller, the sales price was $785,066. There was $248,415.19, which was paid down, with the balance being financed of $485,000. And
By the first deed of trust that we continue to hold. That's what we're talking about, right?
right, and Vanessa's number is currently owed. Each payment is like with your house, is both principal and interest, and the current balance on the note is $466,349.32. That might be helpful to just check the appraisal report. What's that? Ken is muttering in my ear that he recalls the purchase price is $1.4 million. And at the time, that was owned by Shaw Construction, correct? And it was envisioned to be the Carson City Depot site back when it was acquired.
One question in looking at the sale of the Draco or potential sale, there was mention, and I really couldn't make heads or tails of it, and I know that Bob Robinson's not here today, but he had mentioned that as part of the fiscal year budget approved by Department of Taxation, that it listed the revenue potential from the sale of the Draco note as revenue listed for our current fiscal year. Is that correct? Is that your recall on it? I'm not sure if that's true with the State Department of Taxation, but that's what Bob had mentioned something last meeting. So what my concern would be is I don't think there's necessarily a sense of urgency of having to make a determination on the sale of the note at this meeting, but if it's part of the revenue or projected revenue for our current fiscal year ending June 30th, then we would have to address that either through a different revenue source before June 30th or potentially sell the note.
Joel, finance is not my strong suit, but I would be surprised if the monthly payment amounts were not considered part of your revenue. They almost have to be.
So with that, obviously, I'm prepared to just make a motion to go ahead and table this. I'm working through some staff meetings with both Carson City and Story County Finance. I plan on sitting down also with Bob Robinson and Department of Taxation just to find out what if there was any listing of the revenue source for the sale of the note as potential revenue for the operations of our current fiscal year. I'll bring back that information at our next meeting, but my motion would simply be just to table the decision to act on the Draco note at this meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Do we have any additional commissioner comments?
Just under discussion.
Oh, okay.
Denny, at the time of the purchase, Johnson Perkins Associates did the appraisal on the property, which came up with the purchase price that was offered. We subsequently had them revisit it after the or during, I guess, the recession, and their opinion of value dropped considerably, as you might expect, and they came up with the $745,000 price per square foot analysis and concluded that the price was, or the value of the property was between $735,000 and $745,000, which is where where we started really with the sale.
So I think I'm good with tabling it, and tabling this item could be until the next meeting, or it could be indefinite, it could be forever. So I'm good with tabling it. I do lean more towards, we kind of just need to take this off the table forever. It's an asset, it generates revenue. The commission overpaid most likely for that property. If the 1.4 million, and that does match the numbers that I've seen, sounds about right for the original purchase price, subsequently resold for $785, we've already lost $600,000+ on it. I don't know why we would want to contemplate selling an asset that generates revenue at an additional loss, when I think we do, and I think some of the things you're working on could generate that additional operational revenue that we need. So,
You know, I have to agree with Nick Barano, the fact that not knowing, first of all, how an operational assessment is going to play out on our revenue potential or changes for next year's operation, and not knowing that we necessarily have to liquidate our assets at this time, I think tabling it until which time we need to bring it back onto the agenda is, I'll make my motion
okay.
to reflect the tabling until we bring it back as needed.
So we have a motion, and do we have a second? We already had a second? Yes, we did. Was there any additional public comment on the matter? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 7. Miss Candy Duncan, marketing report.
What we've been doing on Polar Express so far. Candy Duncan, marketing coordinator. What I've handed out to you is what I received from Smith & Jones Marketing regarding our online media recap. Right now, of course, we are focusing on the Polar Express. So what this document is doing is showing you a summary to date of the money that we've spent and the revenue generated from that money. And we begin, it's both paid social media and paid search. So you can see, you can read this, but you can see that we're working hard to get these seats sold. And I wanted to let you know that as of yesterday, we have sold out all the VIP seats on Polar Express through the 24th of December. The only seats now left on VIP are after Christmas. We start up again, I believe it's on the 27th of December, and run 27, 28, 29, and 30, and there are still VIP seats left on those trains, but all the rest of them are gone. And so that was like 2,500 tickets. And of the 2,500, we've got about 100 left to sell all on the after Christmas seats. The coach tickets, we start out with right around, I believe it's 12,000 seats to sell, or 12 to 15,000, and we've sold a little over half so far. And what's left, what's remaining in the seats that we have are 8 o'clock rides on Sunday and Thursday evenings, and some of those dates in November, the early November dates are available, some early dates in December. But it is going well. The phone keeps ringing, the tickets keep selling, so the marketing team and I are talking about a planned discount opening weekend if we haven't sold out. We'll make that decision on November 9th, looking at that ticket sales again. We really feel like it's important to start the season with a sold-out weekend to keep that momentum going. And just so those of you, since most of you are new, in the past, we always would sell out Polar Express. We were usually sold out before we even started. But that was because we had fewer seats to sell. And each year, we've tried to accommodate the demand and add more seats. And so what we've been able to do is add more dates. In the beginning, we didn't start until the Friday after Thanksgiving, and we just ran Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Then we added in Thursdays, and then we added the full weekend before Thanksgiving. And this year, we were encouraged by the folks at Rail Events to add more Polar Express runs after Christmas, which is why we're doing those 4 nights. They assured us that other railroads, such as the Durango, Silverton, and the Grand Canyon Railway, that operate after Christmas, sell out their seats, and they were sure that we would be able to do that too. So we're hoping we will. We still have plenty of seats left those last 4 days, but that's why we are not sold out right now. We're usually at this time we would have been, but we're not because we added so many extra runs. And we run at 5 o'clock, 6:30, and 8 o'clock each night. So any questions about any of that?
So, yeah, Candy, if you don't mind, and I apologize for coming in new here. I mean, this is a fairly modest $6,000 campaign budget. So I got the 3 categories: summary, paid social, paid search. Could you just kind of describe to me what the paid social and what the paid search categories are? What does that mean?
The paid social is Facebook, Instagram, those kinds of things where we pay. We have ads on them that
We have
pay for.
Facebook and we have Instagram ads. People see it, they click the ad, it redirects it to either our homepage or some other page.
That's correct.
And we track that, and that's what this is.
It directs them to the ticket sales page.
To the ticket sales, okay.
That's what that is. And then the paid search is, and targets the Sacramento, the Reno, and Carson Tahoe targets, and those are like Google, that kind of paid search. So that when you search Polar Express or trains or V&T Railway, we pay to show up high on that list, one of the top 2 or 3. And so we pay for that. When they click on that, it redirects again to our website and our ticket sales page.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's been a very effective tool over things have changed, obviously, with marketing. We do that a lot in Virginia City. You might be sitting there at home reading the newspaper online or looking at the weather on the weather app, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a V&T pop up, Polar Express. You're like, what? How'd that happen? It's popping up in front of you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been very successful. And then also, just so you know, for the Polar Express marketing budget is relatively small. It's only $15,000 total. And a lot of that is taken up because we got a Nevada Commission on Tourism grant to do some photo shoots this year. And so you have to always match a NCOT grant. So if they say, well, we'll give you $6,000 to do a photo shoot, we have to come up with half of that money. And so a lot of our $15,000 is going toward that campaign, that project, taking those photos. And the reason we wanted to do that is we've done a great video, and I encourage you all, if you haven't already, to go to our website, vtrailway.com, and look at that Polar Express video. It's really a great video. But we came up short when it comes to still photography of the experience, and we realized we really need some more of that we can put out there on all the social media platforms as well as our website.
Are you working with Laura Main on the photography, or who's doing the photography for the Travel Nevada?
Laura Main does the tourist photography during the season, but then Polar Express is always done by Craig Marshall, or has been since we started, and he's signed up and ready to go for this year.
Kenny, one of the things that I wanted to bring out to the board, we're still talking about marketing here, is in our discussions with your team there, I realized that we need to really evaluate the amount that we're spending on marketing. I'm a big obviously advocate of having that proportioned correctly. And I also noticed that the time of year that we're spending those funds, we're almost like we're backwards. So it's one of the things that kind of a watch out as we look at the assessment where we're going into the future. We're starting with zero, basically, next year, when we
Right.
should be starting with our marketing campaigns early in the season.
Right.
It's kind of backwards, so that'll be something we want to flip going forward. The other thing I picked up, too, in our conversation about Polar was, in the budgeting process, we budgeted a full 5 cars
We did.
for the additional 20 runs more than we had last year.
Right.
That would be a watch out for me as well, as I tend to budget a little more conservatively, maybe something we can look at next year.
Right.
That would, obviously, Tom wasn't able to provide that 5th car, so now we're sitting there at a budget for that particular event at the max when we're never going to hit that.
Yeah.
Even though we are selling tickets and we extended 20 more runs, we still won't ever hit that number. Because
Exactly.
of that. So that's one of the reasons I think Bob was wanting to do an augmentation on the budget itself. Is we'll have to address that as going forward. But
Right.
yeah, that was 2 things I picked up.
Okay.
Any additional comments for Candy? Anything from the public?
How many cars are going to be pulled this year?
4.
4?
3
Okay.
coach and 1 VIP.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a total of, coaches each hold 70 and VIP holds 32.
Yeah, last year we were held at 2, weren't we?
No, we
Is it-
had all of them last year.
Oh, did
for
we?
Polar.
Oh, okay.
We just had 2 for regular season.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you're still using the dress rehearsal for your VIP dignitary
Yes.
comps and,
Yes, that
not
8
part of the
o'clock.
contract, it's just straight up
Straight up comp.
Yeah.
It's not part of the contract.
it's a
It's
dress rehearsal.
where we will put on commissioners, people we owe favors to. Each year, we give the families and the advocates to end domestic violence shelter free tickets to ride. And we've got some little contests going on. Some of our contest winners will ride that night. And the cast of the Polar Express, we give them each a couple of tickets so that their families are able to ride that first night and see what that experience is like. So that's where we do that.
And just the one night, just the dress rehearsal?
The one time, 5
Okay.
o'clock. And then after that, the 6:30 and the 8 o'clock are revenue trains. Okay. The date is November 18th, 5 o'clock. So be sure and let me know if you want to ride, just send me an email and I'll make sure you get on that list. That's right.
Entertain motion to accept Candy's marketing report.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the marketing report from Candy Duncan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to action item number 8, Polar Express update. I'll start with that one there. We kind of had a staff meeting yesterday to really see what we need to do. This is a crunch time, and with the transition, we're way behind. But the biggest thing, and I'll go down a couple of points here that we talked about, and I'll have Candy jump in too, was the biggest thing was the North Pole. And that was, a lot of things were done by the previous chairman that we don't have those resources really at our disposal. Now, some of that we paid for, the commission paid for, which we will continue to do. The biggest one, again, North Pole. I spoke with Tom Gray, and Tom has agreed to, verbally agreed to help us out with the North Pole, build that for us. He's going to get us something back in writing, something not to exceed a certain amount, similar to what we paid last year to Dwight. But there are a lot of things that details that we have to take care of, and whether they're at the Eastgate Depot, the North Pole, as a support for Tom, or just in general, it makes me a little bit concerned knowing that before all this happened, I'm not going to be available myself. I'm leaving on vacation on the 11th. We'll be gone until the 25th. So it's kind of one of those things, we want to get some folks in place. We don't have that executive director to take over and just make everything come together. But we have a lot of resources with Candy. There was Joy came in, and her help is going to help with the decorations. Bob was off this week, so I got to circle back with him. We've already spoke with him a little bit on some of the things he does, but there's a couple of things that we may need help with in regards to Public Works or Parks and Rec to pull this thing off, and then just to maybe take turns being present and support whatever needs to be done. I don't know. It's a once I get back, I'm not afraid to jump in there and swing a hammer or a shovel or whatever, but right, I'm not going to be here, so that part concerns me a little bit.
So one of the, or a couple of the concerns, and I think we're meeting that, a question for legal counsel, on our current contract with Tom Gray, he's providing additionally insured to the commission, and will that meet the requirements also then if he's doing the North Pole? Will that carry over in his current contract? And my concern is I don't know that we've had the liability insurance for who's been under contract or maybe a verbal contract to do the North Pole and do the operations. And I think, go ahead.
That's a valid concern. Tom is adequately insured for, and the commission's got secondary insurance through the pool for the operation of the train of North Pole. But in terms of providing manpower, and since you don't have any employees, I don't think that there's any coverage there for that. But I'm happy to check with Wayne and see what he suggests as far as the insurance coverage is concerned.
Yeah, in light of the timeliness of having to get everything done, I do think we want to, if we even have to limit it to then those current independent contractors that are working for the commission and are providing that liability insurance on record, if that limits us to only using them to get through this Polar Express, I think we do that. Or we make sure that all of the independent contractors that are working on behalf of our current contracts, say for Bob's company, Candy's company, make sure that they're also insured and properly protecting us as a commission. I don't know that that's happened. So,
Well, as far as your current independent contractors, there is adequate insurance in place. I mean, my policy covers my representation of you as the client. I'm sure Ken's got insurance, and Candy and everybody, but where I think the gap might be is if Tom provides labor to assemble the North Pole, whether that's going to be adequately covered. I would assume if he's using his employees, he's maintaining workman's comp and other required insurance. But I don't know that the commission is covered on that, so I'll direct a question to Wayne Carlson and find out what his recommendations are.
yeah, that would be perfect, because I know all of our existing contracts do have the required insurance and the additionally insured. So I think any of the manpower that we hire from here to the end of the year either works directly through those contracts, and if we're looking for labor, such as the North Pole setup, that would direct us to somebody like Tom Gray, who already has a contract in place.
I will find out and then shoot everybody an email when I've talked to Wayne.
Mike, my apologies. I don't want to stray too far from the requirements of the open meeting law, but is the railroad insured via the pool pack system?
Yes.
Okay. I think there's another saving opportunity there. That is definitely not our cheapest option.
Great. And looking at the Polar Express, I don't want to scare everybody. I think there's a lot of things that we are ahead of on schedule. Candy's team, Bob has got some things done. One thing is that the Carla Wilson, the talent that she puts together, she gave us this yesterday. You guys can kind of look at this, her plan of operation, if you will, for this. So she's got that part. The show itself is done. That part we don't have to worry about. It's just to set up North Pole, some bigger decorations. I think it amazes me that hot chocolate is a big a topic as it is, and that we keep spending time on just supplying hot chocolate. But there is a few circumstances at the depot where we have to be compliant with health standards and whatnot. So. But I think we have a couple solutions for that, whether it's catered or we do a quick plumbing job to get get a wash basin put in. But anyway, I just wanted, there's any other discussion on or questions on Polar Express, but I am going to get with Nick here on a couple of things that the city might be able to help us with out there. And we'll continue to meet. I know that our original goal was about the 4th. Tom was going to try by next, he's got this week Thomas Train, and then he wanted to try and have that, the buildings up and built by the November 4th. So that gives us about a week, 10 days to start decorating to make sure the bugs are worked out. So for the 18th.
So Candy, are you going to be looking for volunteers to help decorate or?
Well, that was one of the things we discussed yesterday. Really, as far as the depot decorating, Bob and his staff usually take care of all of that. They do need someone to do the high lighting up around the buildings, but usually, and I think when we talked yesterday, Tom said that he and James would take care of that, right? And then we talked about Boy Scouts, maybe asking the Boy Scouts to come out and help decorate the North Pole. So, yeah, there's some opportunities that would all be coordinated through Tom.
Oh, okay.
And Joy. They would coordinate that. But there's some definite opportunities for people to go out and help decorate the North Pole. It's kind of it's a unique animal to get out there and decorate that. And as long as the weather cooperates, it's kind of fun. But if it doesn't, you don't have very many volunteers. But it's not only the challenge is not only getting it set up and decorated, it's keeping that way all the way through the whole run. The first year we set up a North Pole, it blew down before we ever started. So, but it's not as bad as it sounds.
Well, I want to thank staff and Chairman Dotson for committing themselves to what is the most timeliness of everything that we're doing as a commission. As one of the primary revenue generators with Polar Express, that was one of the things that we assured everyone when we started with our SWOT analysis, and everyone we've talked to, from old commissioners to members of the public, that our commitment to making sure that the Polar Express was pulled off without a hitch and as successful as it has been in the past. And we're in good hands with you, and I appreciate it.
Okay, any other discussion on the Polar Express? Okay, I don't know if we need to actually ask for a motion on that to approve my report, but it's more of an update. So we'll just move on to agenda item number 9, and I don't think Tom is not here today, so with that, I think we'll just pull that off the agenda. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item number 10 for possible action, engineering report from Mr. Dorr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Real quick, I think I mentioned last time around that our regular twice weekly track inspections are complete. We will have to reinstitute those when Polar gets started, so Gabe will be continuing to do with that when that goes forward. We are doing some maintenance way operations right now that were put off from this summer, mainly for the weather to get a little bit better, but basically we've got a little bit of surface and lining we need to do. We've got some rough spots that Gabe is proceeding forward with, and we're going to need a little ballast for that too, which one of the ideas is to use some of the ballast which is currently stored at and been manufactured specifically for us at the North Pole site. So hopefully that big pile of rock that sits right next to the North Pole is going to get reduced and put on the track and or stored in Tom's car, and then if we need to move some more gravel around, I can probably talk to the contractor and see if he will move that around for us. A little background on the North Pole site. That property is owned by Phil Cooey, V&T Management, and it's the pit itself. Sam Nevis used to run that, but it's now being run by Dan Kuhn's Construction. So he actually has the lease for that mining operation, that aggregate base operation. Candy, I think, has got the information because both Phil and Danny have requested that they be named as additional insured for the Polar, which we've always done in the past. By the way, there's no charge for that site, so that's been real good. Right now, we just need to move some of the ballast out of the way and hopefully get that on the track, which I think is going to be scheduled for next week, is when Gabe and Tom are going to coordinate trying to get some ballast down and get some rough spots taken care of.
Ken, I'm sorry, just real quick while we're on that. One of the things that came up yesterday is securing the facade for the North Pole. And Tom asked about the rock down there and how much that was going to be, and how much of it was going to be moved by the time that event came by, and if we could use some of that stuff, and there may be a way to use it as a mountain, maybe as a way we could use it to shore up or support some of the structures with some way to keep them from blowing over in the wind. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as a.
And that's a good idea, because I don't think, basically it looks like from the photo, there's several hundred tons of rock there, and each carload holds about 60, and we're going to need probably about 3 carloads. So there's going to be some rock left over. And Danny Coons does have a big front end loader, which he will load the cars with. So that's something, we can look into. That's a good idea.
I think last year they used dumpsters behind each one and then filled the dumpsters, I don't know, that seemed like an awful lot of work.
We were joking about maybe make a little ski hill with the rock there, so. Let me see what I can do to coordinate that.
Okay, thank you.
Kent Hanford, who is, did all the construction management and has also been doing our annual inspections, he's completed his bridge inspection and now finishing up the report. A couple items, NDOT inspects the bridge twice every other year. We are unfortunately, I think I mentioned, required to inspect it once a year, so there's some overlap. NDOT's, they noted a couple of minor exceptions, one of which I think they noted as major, which it's not. There's some spalling on the surface of one of the head walls. It's totally cosmetic, but we'll go ahead and repair that this year. But that bridge is in good shape, and even though we didn't do the rest of our yearly inspections per se, we have completed the bridge inspection, albeit the report isn't quite done yet. Additional insured, I talked about that. Another little thought, just for a little education on the board's part, the blue building, which is the old Parker STO airport site, is owned by Steve Rickabosh Companies, and Steve is donating that use of that building for free to the commission. So again, he's never charged us any money for that. Other than we had a little foul up because we had him on a VIP train last year and the weather went bad and he didn't show up. But Steve has generously donated that. It's not the most secure location in the world. There has been things that have been stolen, both from, we keep some track equipment there. Gabe Willman keeps some equipment there. And then there's also I think all of the Polar equipment is stored on that, in that building. So no word on when Steve is going to move forward with the development of that property. Sooner or later, we're going to have to find another location, but nothing imminent there. Anyway, a lot of thanks to Steve, and he'll probably want some tickets again this year. Carson City Public Works, courtesy of Doug Fong, has completed the relighting on the bridge, and I haven't been out there, but I think I tried to beg and plead and said, you got a painter there? I think they might have tried to touch up some of the logo on the bridge. To do that work, Doug had to go ahead and get an NDOT permit, obviously, and also had to institute traffic control to shut down lanes to be able to get their man lift up under the bridge, which, so we'll be getting a bill for that, but in the past, they're probably about the most reasonable contractor we could ever have an interlocal agreement with. Let me put it that way. Thank you, Nick. That was about it. One other thing I've got here is that at some point in time, the commission needs to consider where we want to keep the quote-unquote engineering, construction-related files, which are all left over from when I was in Manhart. They're still all stored in Manhart's. Now, they haven't, Manhart's office in Carson, they haven't really said anything other than a couple little hints. It would be nice to get rid of those multiple file cabinets. And so we need to have another location to maybe to put those engineering reports and geotechnical reports and drainage reports and archaeological reports, et cetera, for future use. So we need to think about where that location needs to be. And I believe there's also some records in the blue building there too, which would go back from the day one of the commission. So that's something to be thinking about. One service that Manhart does provide for us, well, there's two things. Keith is actually the designated structural engineer on our bridge maintenance management plan. We had to have one per FR requirements, so he's the structural guy if there's any issues there. Linda McKenzie, who's the office manager, main running the office over there, if you will, she's been taking care of some administrative duties for the commission, including filing the quote-unquote Form 55 reports, which what that amounts to is the FRA requires a monthly tabulation of ridership and number of employees and number of accidents. I don't think we've reported any accidents, but what Linda will do is coordinate mostly with Candy, how many passengers do we have, and then Tom provides an estimate of the number of employees that move those passengers, and we have to come up with a passenger mile travel / accident rate. So we do that just like the big railroads, and it's actually on the website, FRA's website, if you want to get really bored and take a look at those statistics. So she's been providing that at a nominal cost. I am the designated FRA safety compliance officer, if you will, so if something goes haywire, I get to go to jail. Anyway, that really is about it for me at this point. Again, big thing right now, we're trying to do a little track surfacing on about 4 locations where we're trying to stay ahead of some surface and line problems we have out there.
Thanks, Ken. Question for you on the retention records. I know that there are retention requirements for some entities, but are those also online or available online? Kind of where I'm going with that is that something that we can keep? The commission doesn't have any type of a box online cloud type system. And that's something as we get into our assessment and look forward, is that something that we can keep online so that it's housed in one location that the commission has control over?
Yes, they are kept electronically as well as hard copies right now. We have PDF. We have to keep track inspection and signal inspection reports for 2 years subject to audit by the FRA. Mm-hmm. So far, we have not been audited, and that's one of the things. And Linda actually has a little master list. She compares when do we do inspections, and she's got an inspection report for each one of those dates that was done throughout the year. I'm somewhat reluctant to admit that our official records are electronic because then we would be furnishing those on a monthly basis to the FRA, whereas at this point we're only subject to their possible audit of our records. But yes, those are kept electronically. We also had hard copies there too. We're not talking about a lot of space there. That's pretty minimal. That's maybe a binder full of reports for the year. Okay. The ones we need to think about in the future is some of all the work that's been done in the past, which we'd hate to lose all that information. But yes, the inspection reports, bridge inspections, signal inspections, track inspections, they're all converted to PDFs, and we keep those electronically also, and on Manhart's server as well as on my computer at home.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments?
Yes. How much space do you need?
8 by 10, something like that, would probably get everything in there.
Okay.
At the most. There's probably 4 file cabinets, and Linda said we probably just give them to you because they're the only ones that are concrete lined. She'd like to get rid of them.
No.
If we can get somebody strong enough to move them.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't know.
Any questions from the
I have a
public?
question.
Yes.
Ken, you mentioned the additional insured for 2 entities or people for Polar. Has you notified, or Candy, have you notified the pool about that?
No.
Because we need to notify the pool to put them on our policy as an additional insured.
No, I haven't.
Can you send me the complete names of the people, and I'll make sure that I cover that with Wayne when I talk to him about the
Sure, I'll do
employees?
that right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jack, if you're talking about looking for space to store files, at least double what Ken said, because of the files that I have. I have every file on every piece of right-of-way that the commission ever required, all the contracts, I have a lot of stuff.
Same question. Do you have that all electronic also? Has it all been scanned in?
No.
No.
Some of it has, Joel, but for example, the appraisal reports, they came from Johnson Perkins, and I have hard copies of those, but we didn't need to have them in electronic format. We just need to have the appraisals so that we could satisfy FHWA. that we had the appraisal and then the review appraisal and all the hoops jumped through to be able to get to spend the federal highway money to construct.
Any additional comments from the public? Go ahead, Jack.
I got another question to Mike. To cover the files you have, we would also need to probably purchase file cabinets, stuff like that?
Yeah, it'd help.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of take a guesstimate of how many you might need.
Well, there are in filing cabinets.
Yeah.
But they're also in Minden at my office.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about for years having a central repository and keeping track of the files of the commission, and there just hadn't been anybody else that was doing it.
Yeah.
Besides Ken and myself.
It's a cloud-based system, everything goes.
One other item, actually, we've been charged by, as the owner of the railroad, essentially charged by BLM Historical Preservation of keeping all the artifacts that were discovered along the railroad. And hopefully, most of those are still there. And we're talking old spikes and tie plates and broken drawbars and this kind of thing. And there's several bags of them which are in the blue building. There's nothing of really economic value, but until such time as those find a permanent resting, we're supposed to be responsible for those. Some item which, and we talked a little bit about setting up a little display case in the depot area to show, maybe we can go through and say, this is what an 1869 spike looked like, and et cetera, et cetera. So we could probably dig up a few of those, but there's bags of those metal artifacts over there.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to accept Kendor's report today.
I'll make a motion to accept Kendor's engineering report.
Second.
I have a motion, and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 11, possible action, track maintenance contract. Again, this will be with you, Ken, to potentially amend Gabriel William and Railroad Construction's contract in the amount of $48,080 to begin clearing trackside ditches of debris, obstructing drainage flows, and related work as a result of the January 2017 storm event.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, we talked about this a little bit last month. Basically, this is the intent here is, even though we're not at this point proceeding with the, and we canceled the project we actually bid, which we were seeking FEMA reimbursement for because the initial funding was not readily available at this point, there's still work that needs to be done. And this work would be done, this is all, if the board proceeds forward, this is all non-reimbursable through FEMA because we did not use their procurement requirements, if you will, for the possible amendment of Gabe's contract. But basically, this would take care of some of the worst areas where we have the most damage up there. There's a couple items here. One of the things is Gabe finally has got his ballast regulator running, and I've been wanting to get that up to the track for a number of years now for cleaning up ballast, and you probably have to see that operation to see how it works. But using a ballast regulator to clean up track and move ballast around is a heck of a lot better than doing it by hand. And that's something we would use on a regular basis, as well as potentially that would help out with at least light snow for Polar to clean up the track a little bit. There's also a Great All excavator move in, and Tom Gray basically bought a high rail, meaning a on-off road tractor excavator, so that it can go on-off rail, I should say, so it can run up and down the track, because we don't have any access. There's no service road along the track, so all the work has to be done like it wasn't done in the old days, is from the track. And so the idea is utilize that excavator, load ballast into a side dump car, and then take the side dump car down to certain locations and basically fills that maybe need a little more material, and dump that material in those locations. And then that, of course, requires locomotive. Will require a little more ballast also, because some of the shoulders will get torn up when we're doing that excavation. As far as an exact scope of work, how many lineal feet or cubic yards of material we're going to get done, I have no idea. And that's why I asked Gabe to set this up so we would have some kind of a basis of what our payment was, just so I wasn't getting bills that I couldn't tie into a proposal. Obviously, there's a financing issue. If we were to authorize this, I think the earliest they would be doing any work could probably be the end of November, and probably wouldn't get really into that until into November, probably December, and carrying into January too. So from a cash flow basis, you probably wouldn't, you're not going to see a $48,000 invoice at the end of this month, and probably not even at the end of December. Again, it's not the big project that we wanted to do, but it will get us by. And I hate to say, well, let's just worry about that in the spring, because if we have some runoff, then with no ditches, the runoff goes on the track, and then that's going to triple some of the repair costs potentially. We've been real lucky up there. With the exception of last year, we haven't had any winter. But last year we had some winter. So that's where we're at now, is for consideration. Do we want to move forward and have Gabe get busy working with Tom to do some ditch maintenance, which is sorely needed?
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, and I know we had this on, and we carried it over from last meeting, and I don't think there was any question that we knew that we needed to do something, preferably before the weather hit. The question really was whether we had the funds to do that, and I think, Joel, you maybe have some comments on that.
Yeah. In the last meeting, I had identified that we currently have roughly $400,000 in a carryover account in the V&T fund. It's been utilized for a couple of different projects over the last 4 years that had a benefit on the V&T and the operation, and also the Polar Express. In conversation with Story County, I believe that we don't want to delay the maintenance of the track, the required maintenance, to get us through the end of the year. So I had asked you to identify what that cost would be to get us through that initial phase, say January, of the $48,000. Is it the full $48,000 to move forward, or do you have an amount that would allow us to not delay the maintenance required?
Again, do I have an exact inventory? Yes, I do, on the project we bid, of exact lineal foot of how much ditch we're going to clean, but some of that we're not going to be able to do, and we're just going to hit the worst part. What I was going to say is, if assuming some of the work gets deferred into January or February even, but I would anticipate you're looking at a minimum of $30,000 in invoicing before the end of the year.
I'm confident that I can get the approval for the use of the funds in the carryover account to cover 50% of that, if that cost is shared then with whatever fund is available from Story County, which I'm believing it will be. So I'm comfortable after discussion to move forward with a motion.
Any additional commissioner comments? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion.
Okay. I move to approve the expenditure of up to $30,000 to apply a partial of the $48,080 with the GW Railroad construction proposal that was presented today. That will be shared 50% through the fund of the V&T that's governed by the Culture and Tourism Authority, and 50% by Story County.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any additional comment on that? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 12, possible action, attorney's report. Mr. Rowe.
Open mic.
Getting the feedback here.
It's the Russians.
Not really much to report. The primary activity has been to interact with the chairman, somewhat with the treasurer, on different issues that have come up regarding the open meeting law and the question of whether we needed to formally accept Dwight's resignation. But other than that, it's been pretty quiet, so I don't have anything in addition to report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any comment, any questions? Any questions from the public? No? Then there was really no report, so I don't think we need to approve that one. We'll move on to commissioner comments.
So I think we have another open mic. So I just want to join Jack in welcoming Stan Jones as part of the commission. You've been a pillar of the community here in Carson, and I really look forward to not only your mentorship, but also your counsel on this board. So welcome aboard, Stan.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity throughout my tenure now with the Visitors Bureau, now named the Culture and Tourism Authority, of working directly for Stan Jones, and I think he is a fine representation for the governor's office on this commission. So I, too, look forward to working with you.
Well, I want to thank the mayor and Nick and Joel for their support in getting the governor to approve me. I want to thank the governor for approving me. I'm looking forward to serving on the board. I think we have a lot of challenges. I believe in transparency, so that's where I come from. And thank you again, everybody.
Great. I just have one comment. I guess as we look forward to, one thing we might want to start talking about is this end of the year strategy type session, assessment, however you want to word it, so we can start moving forward in a direction, taking some of the feedback we got in our workshop and start putting it to work, because I know that there's a lot of things that we need to do, obviously right now, but going into next year. So we can kind of think about that, maybe doing some things on the agenda, or we can recess and then adjourn back as a different board or a workshop or however we need to do it, just going forward. And then I also just wanted to say happy Nevada Day weekend to everybody.
Yeah,
so,
good point. Absolutely.
Yeah. Enjoy the weekend.
One last comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Turned your mic off, though. I want to thank the staff that has stayed on with the V&T Commission through this process, not having all of the institutional knowledge and being able to lean on the institutional knowledge that Mike and Ken and Candy and Bob have brought to this. We're going to have to continue to do that to get through this process. And I know we had very limited opportunity before we were all appointed to have a little bit of conversation in our commitment to making this work. That's why we're here. No differently than the commissioners in the past, we have an opportunity to look more on the operational component, which is, I think, where the V&T is. But without having the opportunity to lean directly on your institutional knowledge, we wouldn't be where we're at in the short time we've been here. So thank you.
Thank you.
And enjoy that vacation, Candy, because when you come back, it's Polar Express. Yeah, me too.
Rest for the weary.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 14. Any additional public comment today? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and adjourn today's meeting. Thanks.